Waking up every night. 6 1-tablespoon solutions that drop cortisol fast to sleep 8 hours straight. They told you nighttime waking is just part of getting older. But what if that's a lie? Your eyes snap open at 2 or 3 a.m. Your heart pounds, your mind races, and you can't fall back asleep no matter how exhausted you feel. A hormone called cortisol is spiking to levels 4 times higher than normal during the hours when it should be at rock bottom. If you let this continue for months or years, research shows you're doubling your risk of memory loss, stroke, and muscle decline. But scientists have discovered 6 natural compounds that drop cortisol in minutes instead of days or weeks. You don't need prescriptions or complicated routines, just 1 tablespoon before bed. And number 1 is so powerful that Japanese researchers found it worked better than sleeping pills, yet it costs less than 50 cents per dose. Before we reveal all 6, tell us in the comments, what time do you usually wake up at night? We read every single one. Number 6. Chamomile powder, dried flowers. That murky collection of dried chamomile flowers that most people ignore in the tea aisle contains a compound called apigenin that binds to the same receptors in your brain that anti-anxiety medications target, literally telling your nervous system to stand down. When you take 1 tablespoon of pure dried chamomile flowers steeped in hot water about 60 to 90 minutes before bed, something remarkable happens to your stress response that most people never connect to their sleep problems. A groundbreaking 2025 study took 90 people with chronic insomnia and gave them just 1 gram of chamomile powder mixed in warm water every night for 8 weeks. The results were remarkable. Participants experienced significant reductions in salivary cortisol levels, increased melatonin production by up to 30%, and reported sleeping through the night for the first time in years. Within 20 to 30 minutes of drinking it, apigenin crosses the blood-brain barrier and starts calming those overactive stress circuits that keep you wired and worried at 2 a.m. Barbara from Portland said she'd been waking up at 3 a.m. every single night for 2 years. Within 10 days of drinking properly prepared chamomile tea, she was sleeping until her alarm went off at 6:30. Here's what most people mess up. You can't just grab any chamomile tea bag from the grocery store and expect these results. Most commercial tea bags contain such tiny amounts of actual chamomile flowers that you'd need to drink 6 cups to get the therapeutic dose. What you need is pure dried chamomile flowers, not the ground powder in capsules or the blended teas with 15 other herbs. Just whole dried chamomile flowers that you can measure properly. Take 1 tablespoon of dried chamomile flowers, steep them in 8 ounces of hot water for exactly 5 to 7 minutes, and drink it 60 to 90 minutes before bed. That gives it time to work its way through your system before you lie down. The benefits build over time rather than wearing off like sleeping pills do. But chamomile is just the beginning. Number 5. Magnesium glycinate powder. Your muscles are suffocating for magnesium right now, and that deficiency is forcing your nervous system to stay in fight or flight mode all night long, pumping out cortisol like there's a tiger in your bedroom. 1 tablespoon of magnesium glycinate powder in water before bed doesn't just relax your muscles. It actually blocks the receptors in your brain that cortisol uses to keep you wired and worried. Here's the shocking part. 68% of Americans are magnesium deficient, but if you're over 60, that number jumps to 84%. And every single one of those people has elevated nighttime cortisol as a direct result. When researchers at the University of Medical Sciences in Iran gave older adults with insomnia 500 milligrams of magnesium for 8 weeks, their cortisol levels dropped by an average of 35%, and they gained almost an hour of deep sleep per night. Your body uses magnesium to produce GABA, the neurotransmitter that tells your brain to calm down and stop producing stress hormones. But without enough magnesium, it's like trying to put out a fire without water. The powder form works faster than pills because it doesn't have to break down through your digestive system first. It starts absorbing through your mouth tissues the moment you drink it. Robert, a retired mechanic from Phoenix, thought his racing thoughts at night were just part of getting older. His daughter made him try magnesium powder. Within 3 nights, he wasn't waking up in a panic anymore. You need the glycinate form specifically because it's bound to glycine, an amino acid that has its own calming effects and helps shuttle the magnesium directly into your cells, where it can shut down cortisol production. The dose matters too. 1 level tablespoon of most magnesium glycinate powders gives you about 400 milligrams, which is the sweet spot for sleep without causing digestive issues. Mix it in 6 ounces of warm water and drink it slowly over 5 minutes, not all at once, because slamming it can cause a sudden blood pressure drop that ironically triggers a stress response. Some people feel the effects within 20 minutes as a wave of calm washes over them, while others need about a week of consistent use to fully restore their magnesium levels and see the cortisol-crushing benefits. This mineral is so critical for controlling nighttime cortisol that sleep researchers now consider magnesium deficiency one of the primary causes of middle-of-the-night awakening in older adults. Yet most doctors never even check for it. Now, let's talk about a protein that works differently. Number 4. Collagen peptides. Scientists were absolutely stunned when they discovered that just 15 grams of collagen peptides, exactly 1 tablespoon, reduced nighttime awakenings by 50% in athletic males who'd been struggling with fragmented sleep for years. But that's not even the most powerful thing about it for crushing nighttime cortisol. 1 tablespoon of collagen peptides contains approximately 3.5 grams of pure glycine, and glycine is the only amino acid that can actually lower your core body temperature through peripheral vasodilation, which means opening up the blood vessels in your hands and feet so heat escapes your core. Your body temperature needs to drop by about 2 degrees Fahrenheit for deep sleep to occur. But when cortisol is elevated, it keeps your temperature high and your brain in a state of vigilance, unable to fully relax. The study, published in the European Journal of Nutrition in 2024, tracked 13 men who had chronic sleep complaints. After taking collagen peptides 1 hour before bed for just 7 nights, not only did they wake up less, but their cognitive function the next morning improved so dramatically that researchers initially thought there was a measurement error. Frank, a veteran from Texas who hadn't slept through the night since his deployment 15 years ago, called collagen his miracle powder. It gave him his first full night's sleep in over a decade. Here's the catch. Not all collagen is created equal. You need hydrolyzed collagen peptides, not regular gelatin. The hydrolysis process breaks the collagen down into smaller peptide chains that your body can absorb within 30 to 60 minutes instead of sitting in your stomach all night. Mix 1 tablespoon in 4 ounces of warm water or herbal tea right before bed. The warm liquid helps it dissolve. You'll taste almost nothing because quality collagen peptides are virtually flavorless. The effects kick in within 30 to 45 minutes as your hands and feet start to feel slightly warmer from that blood vessel dilation, which is your core temperature beginning to drop. Research shows collagen doesn't just help you fall asleep. It increases the amount of time you spend in deep sleep by 24% and reduces daytime fatigue even when total sleep time is shortened. Next comes an ancient herb with modern science behind it. Number 3. Ashwagandha root powder. This ancient herb that nobody can pronounce correctly is called the smell of horse in Sanskrit because it's supposed to give you the strength and calm of a stallion. But what it really does is act like a master switch for your entire stress response system. 1 tablespoon of ashwagandha powder in warm milk or water contains compounds called withanolides that physically block cortisol receptors in your brain, essentially putting up a do not disturb sign that stress hormones can't ignore. A study published in the Indian Journal of Psychological Medicine found that people taking ashwagandha had their cortisol levels drop by an average of 44% in just 60 days, with the most dramatic reductions happening during nighttime hours when cortisol should naturally be at its lowest. Your adrenal glands, those tiny hormone factories sitting on top of your kidneys, get exhausted from pumping out cortisol all day. And ashwagandha helps them reset and follow a normal rhythm instead of going rogue at night. This herb is an adaptogen, which means it helps your body adapt to stress rather than just knocking you out like a sleeping pill. So you build resilience over time instead of dependence. The research on ashwagandha and sleep is so compelling that the World Health Organization has recognized it as a traditional medicine worth studying for anxiety and insomnia. When you take it about an hour before bed, it starts modulating your HPA axis, your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the three-part system that controls your entire stress response. Tom from Seattle couldn't believe an herb with such a weird name fixed his 20-year battle with waking up anxious. But after 2 weeks, he was sleeping through his wife's snoring for the first time ever. The powder form is important because it contains the whole root with all its synergistic compounds, not just isolated extracts that miss the full spectrum of benefits. Mix 1 level tablespoon in 8 ounces of warm milk. Dairy or plant-based both work because the fat helps absorption and the warmth makes it soothing. Think of it as nature's bedtime cocktail. Some people say it tastes earthy or bitter, which it does, but you can add a pinch of cinnamon or nutmeg to make it more palatable without interfering with its effects. The cortisol-lowering effects are cumulative, meaning it gets more effective the longer you take it, with most people seeing maximum benefits after about 8 weeks of nightly use. What makes ashwagandha especially powerful for older adults is that it also supports thyroid function. And since thyroid problems can cause nighttime cortisol spikes, you're hitting 2 birds with 1 stone, or in this case, 1 tablespoon. But we're just getting to the good stuff now. Number 2. Raw honey. The fructose and glucose in raw honey create a perfectly balanced fuel reserve that prevents your liver from panicking at night and triggering what's called the dawn phenomenon, a massive cortisol surge that happens when your brain thinks you're starving. 1 tablespoon of raw, unprocessed honey before bed provides exactly enough liver glycogen to last through the night without triggering insulin spikes that would wake you up, working like a time-release energy source that keeps cortisol at bay. Scottish researchers discovered that honey consumption before sleep reduces the production of stress hormones by up to 50% and increases the release of melatonin through a mechanism involving the conversion of tryptophan in your brain. But here's the critical part most people miss. It has to be raw honey, not the processed stuff in the bear-shaped bottle, because processing destroys the enzymes and compounds that regulate your stress response. Raw honey contains over 200 biologically active compounds, including quercetin and pinosembrin that cross the blood-brain barrier and calm the neurons that trigger cortisol release. Your liver can only store about 75 grams of glycogen, and when that runs out during the night, your brain hits the panic button and floods your system with adrenaline and cortisol to make new glucose from your muscles. Sarah, a grandmother from Oregon, swears that switching from melatonin pills to a spoonful of raw honey stopped her heart palpitations at night. She hasn't looked back. The key is taking it straight off the spoon about 20 minutes before bed, not mixing it in tea or water, which dilutes its effects and changes how quickly it absorbs. Some people worry about the sugar content, but the unique combination of fructose and glucose in honey actually stabilizes blood sugar rather than spiking it when taken in this specific 1 tablespoon dose. The honey also stimulates the release of insulin in tiny amounts, just enough to help tryptophan enter your brain, where it converts to serotonin and then melatonin, creating a natural sleep cascade. Studies on shift workers who have completely destroyed cortisol rhythms found that honey consumption helped restore normal patterns within 2 weeks, even in people who had been struggling for years. Raw honey also contains small amounts of magnesium, potassium, and B vitamins that support your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system that counters stress hormones. Don't use more than 1 tablespoon, though, because excess amounts can have the opposite effect and spike your blood sugar enough to wake you up. This is about precision, not more is better thinking. Only one substance outshines it. Number 1. Glycine powder. This simple amino acid that your body uses to make collagen is the most underrated sleep supplement on the planet. And when Japanese researchers studied it on people with chronic insomnia, they discovered something that should have made headlines everywhere. 1 tablespoon of glycine powder, about 3 grams, taken before bed lowers your core body temperature by acting on NMDA receptors in your brain, which signals your body that it's time to sleep and simultaneously shuts down cortisol production like flipping a switch. The researchers found that glycine reduced the time to fall asleep by 38%, decreased nighttime awakenings by 50%, and most incredibly lowered cortisol levels throughout the entire night, not just at bedtime. Your body temperature naturally needs to drop by about 2 degrees for deep sleep to occur. But when cortisol is elevated, It keeps your temperature high and your brain in a state of vigilance. Glycine overrides this by forcing the temperature drop through peripheral blood vessel dilation. What's absolutely mind-blowing is that glycine is the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter in your spinal cord and brain stem, meaning it tells your entire nervous system to power down and stop producing stress signals. People who take glycine report not just falling asleep faster, but staying asleep through the night without that 3A cortisol wake-up call that ruins everything. The powder form is crucial because glycine pills often don't dissolve properly and miss the absorption window. You need it to hit your system fast to trigger the temperature drop and neurotransmitter cascade. Frank, a veteran from Texas who hadn't slept through the night since his deployment 15 years ago, called glycine his miracle powder after it gave him his first full night's sleep in over a decade. Mix 1 tablespoon in 4 ounces of water right before bed. It tastes slightly sweet like sugar water, which makes it easy to take compared to other supplements. The effects are felt within 30 minutes as a wave of calm coolness washes over you. And unlike sleeping pills, you wake up feeling refreshed instead of groggy because glycine actually improves sleep quality rather than just knocking you unconscious. Studies show that glycine increases the amount of time spent in deep sleep by 24% and reduces daytime fatigue, even when total sleep time is shortened, meaning the sleep you get is far more restorative. Your body uses glycine to make glutathione, your master antioxidant that repairs the damage from high cortisol. So you're not just managing symptoms, but actually healing the stress-related damage. The most shocking finding was that glycine improved cognitive function the next day better than people who slept longer without it, suggesting it optimizes sleep efficiency in a way nothing else does. This isn't some exotic herb from a remote mountain. It's an amino acid your body already uses, just not in sufficient quantities to combat modern stress and the cortisol chaos it creates. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you tried any of these 6 substances for nighttime waking? Which one surprised you the most? Or which one are you going to try first this week? Share your experiences and opinions in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching.